Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We will continue reading from Canto 7, The Science of God, from The Brilliant as the Sun, a retelling of Srimad Bhagavatam. And we'll begin chapter 5 today. Prahlad, saintly son of a demon. Mukam karati vachalam pangum langayate girim yat kripa tamam vande Shri Gurum Deen Tarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hari Om Tatsav. Shanda and Amarak bowed to Hiranyakashipu and his queen Kayadu. What took you so long? Barked Hiranyakashipu. We came as soon as we received your summons, my lord, stuttered Shanda. Hiranyakashipu turned to Kayadu. These two are Shukracharya's sons. I have accepted him as our priest, and they will be the Asura's teachers. Prahlad will also attend their school close to our palace. He turned to his young son who sat next to his mother, the queen. Prahlad, I want you to go with them and commence your education. Kayadu protested. He was too young, but Prahlad jumped up eagerly. He remembered how much he enjoyed learning about devotional service to Krishna, and he looked forward to continuing his studies. Yes, father, I will happily go to school. Hiranyakashipu affectionately patted his head. Good lad. As the days passed, Prahlad discovered this school was unlike his previous one, and Shanda and Amarak were nothing like Narad. They taught him politics such as dividing and conquering opponents to increase his affluence and power. Although he dutifully learned his lessons, he did not enjoy them, as they were based on seeing duality between friends and enemies. On his first school break at home, his father came to his mother's quarters to see his son. Lifting him onto his lap, Hiranyakashipu affectionately stroked Prahlad's head. Tell me, dear boy, what is the most important lesson you have learned? Prahlad thought a while. He had learned nothing useful from Shanda and Amarak, so he recalled his favorite teaching from Narad. Dear father, best of the demons, my spiritual master taught me that we suffer in this world because we have accepted this temporary body and family as belonging to us. To get out of this ignorance, which he compared to a dark well of suffering, we should take shelter of Krishna in Vrindavan. Hiranyakashipu's face reddened. He let out a loud snort. Just see how the enemy's words spoil a child's intelligence. He called for his ministers and Prahlad's teachers. Protect my son carefully when he is at the school. Do not allow any cunningly disguised Vaishnavas to get near him and further pollute his mind. Back at the school, Shanda and Amarak paced around in perplexity. Who had taught Prahlad about Krishna? They could not let it happen again. Hiranyakashipu would take off their heads. They called Prahlad to their office. Sit down, dear boy, they said kindly when he arrived. Here we have some of these. They offered him a tray of milk sweets. Prahlad thanked them and took one. Dear Prahlad, said Shanda, you must know that as your teachers, we care deeply for your happiness and success in life. Prahlad bowed his head respectfully. Thank you, sir, Amarak said. Out of our concern for you, we are curious to know who has contaminated your intelligence. After all, none of the other boys in the school speak such falsehoods. Shanda said, Prahlad, you are your father's favorite son and our favorite student. Pray tell, have you invented these things from your imagination, or has one of your father's enemies taught you? Since we are your affectionate teachers, very concerned for your welfare, kindly tell us the truth. Prahlad understood their intention. They considered him a foolish boy who could divulge his spiritual master's name, so they could have him killed. He pressed his palms together in a prayer. I offer my respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord, whose material energy deludes people to see in terms of friends and enemies. I previously heard about this, but now I am experiencing it. Shanda and Amarak looked at each other in surprise. Prahlad lowered his hands and addressed them respectfully. My dear teachers, you want to know who has polluted my mind and made me different from the other boys? I do not think my intelligence is perverted. Instead, I have understood the truth by the Lord's grace. So no one is our friend or enemy. We are all equal as Krishna's servants. While you think while you continue to think in terms of enemy and friend, you cannot see the supersoul present in all our hearts. Astonishingly, I can see him, even though such exalted persons as Lord Brahma, who perfectly understand the Vedic teachings, struggle to practice the principles of devotion by which we can know him. I can only say it is Krishna himself who has guided my intelligence. As iron is attracted to a magnet, my dear teacher, similarly, now that his will purifies my consciousness. I am irresistibly attracted to Lord Vishnu. I have no control over this. Shanda and Amarak's breathing became heavy and their faces turned scarlet. Enough, speak no more, they screamed. Prahlad lowered his eyes and fell silent. Shanda turned to Amarak. Quickly bring me a stick. This Prahlad will ruin our reputation. His twisted intelligence makes him a threat to the survival of his entire dynasty. We have no other option but severe punishment. Amarak whispered in Shanda's ears. Best not beat him without his father's permission. He turned and spoke sternly to Prahlad. Do you know what we use thorn tree wood for, boy? Prahlad shook his head. Lumberjacks use it to make handles for the axes they use to cut down sandalwood forest. Your illustrious family is like a forest of sandalwood, and Vishnu, their sworn enemy, is the axe that threatens to destroy them. If you are not careful, the enemy will use you as the handle for the axe to annihilate your own family. Prahlad made no reply as Shanda and Amarak unbraided him. Afraid to strike the child, they sent him back to the classroom. Maybe they could instruct some sense into the boy. Do you know the real purpose of performing religious rituals? Shanda asked patiently. Prahlad stayed silent, knowing that Shanda would not appreciate his answer, and the teacher said, to increase our affluence. Why do we want more wealth? To enjoy our senses. This is the goal of life. Shanda turned to the class. All of you repeat after me. The only purpose of religious rituals is to increase our wealth. All the boys, including Prahlad, obediently repeated the lesson. Amarak said, we need wealth to enjoy our senses. Sensual gratification is the greatest happiness. Repeat. All the boys again repeated. The true Brahmins continued this indoctrination each day for many weeks. They would also give Prahlad private tuition. When you grow up, you will inherit your father's kingdom, said Shanda. Therefore, you must learn how to pacify any rebellion. There are 4 strategies every leader needs to know, said Amarak. If one of your citizens makes trouble, the first tactic is to appease him by giving him a public post. Pretend you are a troublemaker and I'm you. This is how to implement this first strategy, said Shanda. He assumed a pleasant demeanor and called Prahlad to him. He spoke in honeyed tones. Sir, you are very important in the state. Why should you disturb the public? Instead, work with me by accepting this lucrative post in my government. We call this Sama. Both the teachers guffawed. That works most of the time, said Chanda. If it does not, said Amarak, you use the next policy, dana or offers of wealth. Sometimes known as bribery, said Shanda with a laugh. Every man has his price. Indeed, said Amarak. Sometimes, though, even that will fail. When someone has some stupid principle, then we resort to bheda, divide and conquer. For example, if you can spread rumors to turn the enemy camp against each other, it does not matter if the rumors are false. The point is to set them against each other. If that fails, said Shanda, you use argumentum ad baculum severe. punishment. Amarak wrung his hands gleefully. This one always works. You can imprison them, beat them, and finally put them to death. The teachers taught this lesson until Prahlad could repeat it verbatim. They gave him different scenarios and asked him which form of diplomacy was appropriate. When he became fluent in these lessons, they thought it safe to allow him to visit his parents. Prahlad's mother, Queen Kayadu, bloomed with joy to see her son. She washed, dressed, and ornamented him. Then she accompanied him to see his father in court. Prahlad offered his prostrated obeisances to his father and touched his feet. Noting his son's reverence for him, Hiranyakashipu spoke in a voice choked with emotion. May you live long, my dear child. May your life be filled with happiness, success, and glory. He raised his son with both hands, sat him on his lap, and embraced him in great happiness. Affectionate tears glided from Hiranyakashipu's eyes as he glanced lovingly at his son's upturned, smiling face. My dear Prahlad, dear son, you have spent a long time in school now. Tell me the best lessons you have learned. Prahlad thought for a moment, recalling all Chanda and Amarak had taught him. In his opinion, none of their teachings had any value. He again cast his mind back to Narad's lessons. Here he remembered so much of value to choose from. He settled on what he felt was the essence. My dear father, the most excellent, most complete knowledge is that we should dedicate our lives to Krishna's service in one or more of the following ways. We can hear about Krishna, glorify him, remember him, serve the Lord's devotees, worship him, offer him prayers, serve him personally, and finally we can become his confidential friend and offer him everything. Hiranyakashipu's features darkened and his lips quivered. Chanda and Amara, come here right now, he bellowed. Trembling with fear, the two brothers crept forward and bowed. Hiranyakashipu hissed like uh, any angry serpent. Although you are the sons of a Brahmin, you are most heinous and unqualified. How dare you disobey my order and side with my enemies? Shaking like a leaf, Amarak said, my lord, we have never disobeyed you. Chanda quickly added, nor have we colluded with your enemies. Then how have you taught my son all this nonsense about devotional service? Lord, we are your obedient servants, protested Amarak. Be quiet, roared Hiranyakashipu. It is not always obvious who is acting sinfully. However, it becomes easier to tell when different diseases manifest in the body. Similarly, it is not always easy to know who is a false friend, but now your deceitful behavior has exposed you. Chanda swallowed hard and summoned his courage. O enemy of Indra, great king, please believe us. Neither of us nor anyone else in our school has taught Prahlad these things. His devotion to Krishna is innate to him. Therefore, please do not necessarily angry with us. Taking a deep breath and steadying his nerves, Amarak added, yes, Lord, this is the truth. It is not good to accuse a Brahmin of being deceitful. Hiranyakashipu looked down at Prahlad, who still sat on his knee. You rascal, most fallen of your family, if your teachers have not taught you this nonsense, who has? Prahlad remained calm. Father, you think devotion to Krishna is repugnant because you want to enjoy material life? Therefore, you will never appreciate the excellence of devotional service, nor will teachers like these help you understand. Hiranyakashipu knitted his eyebrows, and the blood vessels in his head and neck bulged. Fool, how dare you criticize me, your father? Do you know that all the gods, including Indra, worship me? You even dare to fault your teachers who know all the Vedas. My dear father, since you believe life's goal is sensual enjoyment, you accept like-minded men as your teachers. Unfortunately, they will simply lead you into further and further material entanglement and suffering. Hiranyakashipu snapped back, Shanda and Amarak are the learned sons of Shukracharya. If the goal of life were to serve Vishnu, the Vedas would say so, and since they know the Vedas, they would teach it. They do not teach devotion to Vishnu because the Vedas do not. Prahlad smiled mildly. My dear father, no one can understand the truth of the Vedas simply by academic study, with only by smearing one's intelligence with the dust from the lotus feet of Krishna's unalloyed devotee. In other words, by hearing from him, one can become purified of all material contamination and know Krishna's in truth. Overcome with rage, his eyes like molten copper, Hiranyakashipu leapt to his feet, throwing Prahlad to the floor. Guards, arrest him, take him out of here and kill him immediately. Horrified, the weeping Kayadu tried to shield her son with her own body. Have mercy, my lord. He is but a child. Have mercy. Hiranyakashipu pulled her away from Prahlad. He is no longer our son. He is my brother's killer, for he has forsaken our family to become Vishnu's menial servant. Kayadu sobbed hysterically. He is only 5 years old, my lord. Please relent. That shows how treacherous he is, that he has forsaken his parents to side with the enemy at such a young age. Why, he will probably one day even betray Vishnu. Kayadu crumpled to the floor, clinging to Hiranyakashipu's leg. She cried, My lord, how can you kill your own son? Because unlike you, I have proper discernment. I do not understand, sobbed Kayadu. A medicinal herb benefits us, therefore, even though it is a lower species, we keep it carefully. Conversely, if one of our bodily limbs becomes septic and threatens our life, we amputate it. Similarly, if a stranger is favorable to us, we should protect him like a son, and if our son becomes inimical, we must reject him. Just as uncontrolled senses are a yogi's worst enemy, this intractable boy is mine. Guards, take him away and use whatever means necessary to kill him. Soldiers surrounded Prahlad and marched him to the dungeons. They threw him onto the stone ground. This one is to be killed immediately. Hideous looking demons came out of the shadows. Cackling gleefully, they revealed their sharp yellowish teeth and threw back their long coppery hair, revealing their gruesome faces. Prahlad folded his hands in prayers and meditated on Vishnu. Raising their tridents, they stabbed Prahlad furiously all over his body, chop him up, pierce him. To their astonishment, their tridents could not pierce Prahlad's skin. What's going on? What's happening? One of them put his face up to Prahlad's. What magic power do you have? Prahlad spoke calmly. None. Then how is it our weapons are useless against you? Surprised another. Because I meditate on the Supreme Lord Govinda, just as the father protects a small child on his lap. Krishna protects his devotees who have always thought of him or think of him. The demons swung their weapons more fiercely at Prahlad. If he is protecting you, we will kill him, my dear God, said Prahlad. You cannot hurt Krishna because he is in transcendence. You can't kill him. What do you mean? Fear gripped his heart. He called his chief ministers. We must find some way of killing Prahlad before he grows up and finally kills me. What do you suggest? The ministers conferred, and then their leader said, Why not throw him beneath the feet of your elephants? His thick, impenetrable skin will not protect him from being crushed to the pulp. Do not immediately order Hiranyakashipu. A little while later, as his chief guard hurried to report to the king. Is he dead? Asked Hiranyakashipu. The guard trembled. Well, speak up, man. Have you thrown him to the elephants? Yes, my lord. We threw him. Hiranyakashipu sighed in relief. So he is dead? No, my lord, he is not. What? Screamed Hiranyakashipu. Where is the Were the elephants asleep? No, my lord, we threw him amongst the angriest elephants. When we threw him in, the elephants were in a frenzy. Then how did he survive? The largest bull elephant placed Prahlad on his head and kept him safely there until Prahlad asked him to put down. Hiranyakashipu turned to his chief minister. How? How could this happen? My lord, elephants are fond of their calves. Prahlad must have incited the bull's paternal instinct. Snakes, on the other hand, are known to eat their newborns. Let us throw Prahlad into your pit of venomous serpents. Hiranyakashipu turned to the guard. Take this child immediately and toss him to the snakes. A little while later, the guard returned, his head lowered. Well, is he dead? Demanded Hiranyakashipu. The cowering guard shook his head. Why not? Did you do as I said and throw him into my pit of snakes? Yes, my lord. Then why did they not eat him, my lord? They were starving, as we always keep them hungry and dangerous, but the largest one protected him the entire time he was in the pit. Hiranyakashipu smashed his fists against the throne and turned to his ministers. Why those snakes could consume a horse? Why did they not kill him? The chief minister cleared his throat nervously. My lord, some people have the power of charming snakes with their voice. This must be the case with Prahlad. He may have used this same power over animals on the bull elephant. There are many other ways of killing him where his gift cannot save him. Let us immediately arrange a ritual to invoke a spell for his destruction. Hiranyakashipu presided over the ritual. A terrific demon emerged when the Brahmins placed the last oblation into the fire. Who should I kill? Thundered the fearful monster. Kill the boy Prahlad who awaits you in the king's dungeon, ordered the chief priest. The evil spirit disappeared. Hiranyakashipu and his ministers chuckled gleefully, anticipating Prahlad's death. However, as they rose to leave, the spirit reappeared about the sacrificial flames. Have you killed them? Asked the chief priest. I could get nowhere near him, for an invisible force protects him. Since you sent me on a futile mission, I will now kill you. Before everyone's eyes, the spirit devoured the chief priest before disappearing. Hiranyakashipu slumped in his seat. I can't believe it. Prahlad seems invincible. His ministers tried their best to encourage him. One said, the boy has some mystic power, my lord. It cannot save him from every eventuality. We will find some way to exterminate him. Another said, we can hurl him from the top of the highest mountain. That will surely finish him off. Why not starve him? Said another. Better still, said a fourth, let us poison him, throw him into the wilderness where he will be exposed to severe cold, winds, fire, and hazardous rivers, said another minister. My favorite way of killing someone is to crush him under heavy stones, said another, rubbing his hands together. Hiranyakashipu said, do whatever it takes to kill the boy. Weeks passed and the demons made every effort to kill Prahlad. One day the chief minister entered Hiranyakashipu's private quarters. The king dismissed the maidens who were ornamenting him. What is the news? Is the boy dead? The minister hung his head. No, my lord. We have tried every means possible to kill him, but we could not even bruise him. Hiranyakashipu reeled and staggered to his seat. I have cruelly chastised him and called him many ill names. I have tried to kill him in so many ways, but despite all my efforts, he still lives. He must be mighty indeed. Otherwise, how does a mere child in my clutches remain fearless? How is it that by always remembering my enemy Vishnu, Prahlad repeatedly escapes death like Shunashepa? Indeed, he seems to be unlimitedly powerful, maybe even immortal. That would explain why he does not fear me in the least. Perhaps having made an enemy of him, I will be killed. A shudder ran through him, and he shook his head. No, such a small child can never overpower me. Hiranyakashipu sank into a deep depression and would not leave his room. One day, Shanda and Amarak came to see him privately, noting that the king had lost his vitality and sat silently with his face down. They tried their best to cheer him up. O conqueror of the three worlds, why are you so anxious and sad? Are you not the same powerful hero who single handedly crushed the commanders of every planet? Why do you fear Prahlad? He is just a small child. He is no threat to you. Hiranyakashipu growled. Although my son, he is determined to oppose me. Amarak shortled. That is not to be taken seriously, my lord. Children go through phases and often rebel against their parents when they are young. He will grow out of it. Wait and see. Hiranyakashipu looked up, a spark of hope in his eyes. Do you think so? The two Brahmins smiled and nodded reassuringly. Our father Shukracharya will be back soon, said Shanda. If you are worried, you can bind Prahlad with the ropes of Varun so he does not escape. Amarak also spoke reassuringly. By continuing his lessons with us and serving our father when he returns, his intelligence will undoubtedly change in time. He will be just like you when he grows up. Have no fear. Hiranyakashipu heaved a sigh of relief. Perhaps these Brahmins were right. Rising, he placed a warm hand on Amarak and Chanda's shoulders. You are probably correct. Take him back to your school, train him in diplomacy and the art of ruling. Make sure he hears nothing but about renouncing the world and worldly pleasures. I want him to marry and increase our family's glory. Shanda and Amarak went to the dungeons where Prahlad was held. On seeing them, Prahlad rose and respectfully touched their feet. Your affectionate father, the king, thinks you have been adequately disciplined in your disobedience, said Amarak. He has asked us to take you back to school and continue your education. Yes, dear boy, continued Chanda. The Vedas say every cultured person must know how to act religiously. That will help you increase your prosperity and enjoy life. Your magnanimous father desires that you set aside your spirit of rebellion and become fully educated. Prahlad placed his palms together and bowed his head to show his acquiescence. For the next month, Shanda and Amarak assiduously instructed Prahlad in religious principles which secure prosperity and sensual enjoyment. To encourage Prahlad, he learned his lessons. They spoke about the terrible privations of poverty and attractive opportunities provided by wealth. Prahlad submissively attended all his classes, but he was neither attracted to the perks of wealth nor inclined to compete for it, which required that he see some people as friends and others as enemies. He knew that such a mentality would only implicate him repeatedly in the miseries of birth, death, old age, and disease. He looked forward to that time of the day when his teachers went home to their families. His class friends always asked him to play. These were Prahlad's happiest times because he could preach about Krishna to them. Smilingly, he instructed them about the futility of materialistic life. The boys loved Prahlad and they could sense that he cared for them. Being very young, they had not yet been indoctrinated with their teacher's values. They happily gave up their play at his request, sat near him, and listened attentively as Prahlad refuted everything their teachers had taught them. So this brings us to the end of chapter 5. Prahlad, saintly son of a demon. Next time we'll start chapter 6. Thanks for joining. Hare Tat Sat. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. And happy Makar Sankranti to all of you. The sun has moved to the northern hemisphere and many of you must be watching the Mahakumbh in Prayagraj taking place at the same time. Hare Krishna.